Welcome back to Coach's Exploring the Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And this week we're on to chapter 14, Letting Go of False Solidity. And I'll just read the first little bit of the paragraph or the chapter to get us started. It says, the inside of one's psyche is very complex, a sophisticated place. It is full of conflicting forces that are constantly changing due to both internal and external stimuli. The results is wide variations of needs, fears, and desires over relatively short periods of time. Because of this, very few people have the clarity to understand what's going on in there. There's just too much happening at once to follow the cause and effect relationships between all of the different thoughts, emotions, and energy levels. And I thought, yeah, I've been there.
I thought, oh yeah, that just about sums up my whole life.
Yeah, I just sort of went here. Yeah. I loved the title of this. It really caught my eye. Like it's sort of I don't know what the proper term is, but it's like a double, not a positive negative, or it's redundant sentence or something like that. I can't remember what. But the idea of a false solidity to me was intriguing. Oh, because like if something's solid, well, it's solid, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's a false solidity then? And so that was like already, I can't wait to get into this chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, this, I mean, without getting into the detail off the bat, like my overall sense of this, reading this chapter was very uncomfortable feelings. Because it's challenging the psyche, basically. So like through this whole thing, I could feel my psyche going like, oh, wait, I'm like, stop reading this chapter. It's
like clinging.
Let out.
Yeah, like clinging.
Like clinging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the same for me too, until I read that word. Oh, that's what I'm doing. That's where those feelings are. Like, because at the beginning it was sort of telling me, like you said, Greg, things I didn't want to hear. I didn't want to know about that. Like, well, like, because I'm thinking, well, I need those thoughts and impressions and judgments and considerations and opinions and, it's red, it's blue, no, it's not, yes, it is, no, it isn't. Look, you need to know where I'm coming from because, like, you're just not understanding me. And like, come on, and then read he calls it a Buddhist expression, clinging. I thought, oh no. But as from there, I just noticed as I was reading how things began to settle. The first part, I was sort of understanding intellectually what he was saying. I thinking, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I quite like this, but I didn't feel like I liked it. And then clinging, and I thought, let it go. And that kind of changed my whole perspective and brought me actually to coming into this thinking, I don't think I even want to come in now because I don't think I can say anything. to wanting to come in and share, yeah.
After all those initial, it reminded me of when I first read the book, which is now months and months ago. But this chapter in particular, as I got a little bit into it today, was it made me feel hopeful. After those initial, this is what's been going on. And this is even from our conversation this morning, Elaine, thinking about the discussion we were having. Oh yeah, that's a good reminder. That's what's going on. But then how hopeful to see through it, to be able to even see it, let alone see through it. That just, that's what's going on. And I love it. One of the sentences just a little bit further down that first page. When you're lost and struggling with all these psychological and energetic changes, you are suffering. While it may not seem to you that you're suffering, compared to what it can be, you are suffering. And it was that compared to what it can be. And it just made me think of all the, we look at our own lives or other people's lives, the circumstances of our lives or other people's lives. And when I or another person says, oh, I'm feeling a bit this and I shouldn't because life is good, things look fine, I have X, Y, Z. It's that, compared to what it can be, because it's the internal stuff, not everything that's going on. It's what we're generating, isn't it? So it just felt so hopeful to me. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah, and in that compared
so
to
much possibility.
Sorry, Lynne. Yeah, and that compared to what it can be, the phrase that jumped into my head, because I read, while it as Lynne read, while it may not seem to you that you are suffering, indeed, I'm thinking, wait, it's not that bad. It's okay, okay. I'm definitely much further along in my journey, thanks to having read this book and many others similar nature, etc., etc. And thanks to the fact that I've, worked hard to become a coach and this, that, and the other. And, compared to what it can be. And then what dropped into my mind was those phrases that get chucked about when you may be having a whinge with your best friend, that kind of thing, And what gets fed back to you is, oh, well, you just have to put up with it, won't you? And no. As you read on with this, no, you don't have to put up with anything. It can be beautiful. It can be peace. It can be, pure hope, pure peace, pure love, pure. Full stop. Yeah.
It's occurred to me as I've been thinking about this chapter, how on my journey, the last, 3.5, 4 years with all the coach training and stuff, is that I haven't really quite gotten to what he describes in here as into the full seat of consciousness. I've just been replacing one false solidity with another one. So, I'm a new and improved version of what I thought I was, but I'm still a made up version of something that requires protection and control and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it just reminded me that there's further to go, but in a good way, like in terms of hopefulness and looking forward to getting all the way there. There's a sentence here that says the only things in there are your thoughts, emotions, and movements of energy, none of which are solid. And it was the outside world of form. When we internalize it, inside there is no form. Everything is just, the stuff dreams are made of. Energy, fundamentally. So it's all these things that look so real to me that I can't overcome or I can't change or that I need to change or be a certain way. It just goes back to the similar realizations I've had reading Sid Banks stuff, just about how made up it all is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as I'm listening to you there, and going back to our conversation a little bit this morning, and then also how much we
Your audio just cut out, Lynn.
Oh, did it?
Oh, now it's back.
Oh, sorry, I'm probably not speaking loud enough. We look to all those things and consider them to be fact or true, or this is how it is, and that you're talking about to the clinging. We've really held on so dearly to those things. So is it any wonder we're reading this chapter and feeling a bit uncomfortable and a bit unnerved? And because it, it's pointing us to see that kind of how we've been looking at things all along has been a bit skewed. Like, oh, what does that leave room for?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved what you said, Greg, about, a new and improved version of, and I'm, well, it's like great, even to see that, how great is that?
This idea of clinginess, I don't know if you guys are Simpsons fans at all, but there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer has his arm stuck in a vending machine because he stuck his arm in to try to get a soda or something. So the fire department shows up to help kind of release him. They're doing everything they can to get him off, and they're like, "Are you still holding on to it?" And he's like, "Yes." But it's like this idea of clinginess is, like for me, I'll go back to the thing that my thing that had been my Achilles heel my whole life was my picky eating. But it's like over here, I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm trying to overcome it. I'm trying to let go of all that. And over here, I'm still clinging to it. I'm still identifying with it. I'm still holding on to it. So like I'm pulling that Homer Simpson, like they're trying to get me out of this vending machine. And I'm holding on. That's what's preventing them from getting me out.
Yeah, and and he brings in this term clinging. Just for me, it's just after the first page at the beginning of the next, and I think the next paragraph actually is worth reading out and because at least as far as I remember, and starting out with Jamie Smart, I mean it's and reading Michael Neill's stuff and let's say all of this stuff, it's practically the first thing that we're let's say informed of, because it's speaking to me about something that indeed we can get informed of things, but we don't actually learn them until, or don't fully embody an idea or a concept or a thought or a feeling or something until much further on down the line. And we keep on clinging, of course, to maybe the old stuff. And he said, in order to understand clinging, we must first understand who clings. As you go deeper into yourself, you will naturally come to realize that there is an aspect of your being that is always there and never changes. This is your sense of awareness, your consciousness. It is this awareness that is aware of your thoughts, experiences, the ebb and flow of your emotions. I'll read that again. It is this awareness that is aware of your thoughts, experiences, the ebb and flow of your emotions, and receives your physical senses. And then this bit really jumped out at me. This is root of self. You are not your thoughts. You are aware of your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You feel your emotions. You are not your body. You look at it in the mirror and experience this world through its eyes and ears. You are the conscious being who is aware that you are aware of all these inner and outer things. Amen to that.
Yeah, to your point, it's the kind of thing that, all of a sudden you get it. And then you're like, why didn't anyone ever tell me this? And then you go, telling me this for years.
Yeah, exactly.
Listened or couldn't hear it or see it or know it.
Again, I like the way the whole thing is set out, in the sense that from there, it's like he's saying, okay, so have you got this now?
Yeah.
And instead of, he's sort of deeply explains in quite big detail and all in his humorous way, for the example of the blue Mustang and the girlfriend and that kind of thing, sort of very mundane stuff. But like, now we've got to this, and now he's said that, the next part, goes on, right, so you've got this, now let's look at the consciousness. Let's look at it now. So you've got this, let's look at it. I love the way he does that. Yeah. And he goes on, if you explore consciousness, which is your pure sense of awareness. And I love the way that he's kind of prepared you for this. Like that this paragraph that starts, if you explore consciousness, couldn't start before what he said before, or even in the other chapters before.
Yeah, it's like 14 chapters of build up to get to understanding of consciousness to be able to go to the next step.
Yeah.
It's kind of, earlier in the book, like he's describing the inner roommate and then, the psyche, and now he's into the consciousness. And I love what he says here. His consciousness is a dynamic field of awareness that has the ability to either narrowly focus or broadly expand. And then he goes on to give examples of how that works. And for me, like as I was reading that, I was totally getting it. Like I could see how that plays out in my life in terms of the focus. Or the broadness of my awareness. And it's kind of like in the principles world, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It's like when you're caught up in something, well, it's because you're very focused on what's going on in your life or a circumstance or the movie or whatever. And when you do get it, it's because you've broadened your perspective and you're back in the seat of consciousness. Not caught up. So I love for me, it shines a whole new light on understanding. I don't know. I was going to say the mechanics of it, but I don't know if it's so mechanical, but just the way it works.
Yeah, but the idea that it's dynamic, and the idea, what I feel, as he uses the word dynamic, is that the dynamic bit's got nothing to do with us. It just does that. Which I love, which kind of, again, it's expansive for me. Oh, so it's like got nothing to do with me. No, nothing at all. And the idea that it'll come and go, in and out, focus, expand, in and out. And I guess that's, for me, very much in the Oriental philosophy, the idea of the Tao and the movement and the yin and the yang, and things just keep on moving. There's no absolute darkness, no absolute light. It's just a continual flow from one to the other. Which I love. Yeah. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me that I was talking to somebody the other day about the metaphor of breathing. Like, this whole time we've been on this call, I doubt any of us have been thinking about breathing, but we've been breathing naturally. But when we want to, we can consciously take over the act of breathing and breathe deeply and whatever. But it's kind of like the way consciousness works. It's doing its consciousness thing, focusing and broadening. But when we notice that we're caught up in something, we can kind of take over and have the awareness that we're being aware and fall back and get out of that, whatever we're caught up in.
Yeah, which is when he says here, the force of consciousness ends up holding the object stable simply by concentrating on it. I love the metaphor used, just as a fish can pass through water, but not through ice.
But not through ice.
Yes, which is simply concentrated water. So mental and emotional energy patterns become fixed when they encounter concentrated consciousness.
And right after that, he says, clinging is one of the most primal acts. So it's kind of like, to me, that's like, I remember Bill Pettit saying something like, be kind to yourself or be gentle with yourself, right? Like when you're clinging, it's not something to beat yourself up over. Like it's the most primal thing you can do. It's not your fault that you're clinging. It's kind of that's what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to me I get the image of a little baby, or a little baby monkey more than anything. It's just how it clings to its mum, it just clings there. And then mum chimpanzee anyways, I've seen in some of the David Attenborough stuff and this kind of thing, if the little monkey wanders off somewhere, you know, she brings it straight back. So she kind of teaches it some way, somehow, which makes it a very primal thing, a very instinctive thing. She teaches it to cling.
Yeah.
You know, while hey kid, you know, while you're so little, you've just got to stay close and cling to mum.
Yeah.
That was the image that came up for me. Yeah. So it's primal in that sense, like we've been doing it right at the beginning. So
yeah. The image that came to me when you were describing that was the baby's death cling. You know, like when a baby grabs your hair or your glasses, this tiny little hand, and you cannot get that hand away for anything.
Yeah. The death thing.
That's so true. Yeah.
That instinct to cling is there.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, in the midst of the vast inner space, and using nothing but the vapor of thoughts, you created a structure of apparent solidity to rest upon. Mm-hmm. And just this whole idea, as he gets into this structure of it that we create, it had me thinking about all of our work with Jamie, who talks about, you know, the only problem anyone has is the way they organize and relate to their experience. You know, the structures that we create. And when we have insights and it shifts the structure, that's when we see transformation. So I don't know, to me, it was very liberating to see that literally the entirety of the structure that we're living in is we've created it. Ergo, we can change it. We can shift it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he says that sort of, you know, clinging creates the bricks and mortars with which we build a conceptual self. And in the midst of vast inner space, using nothing but the vapor of thoughts. So like the shift from, you know, the bricks and mortar to vapor, I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's the vapor bit that's going on with us all the time.
Yeah.
That allows all that to happen, that even the bricks and mortars, you say, Greg, you know, the structure. But and there's another thought I had of that is indeed, though, the kind of the whole thing, I think, will always move together. You know, the structure and the vapor, if you like, and the sort of out there bits. And something about what I found hopeful about this was that something, well, because it's pointing me to the idea that it's always going to be that way. You know, Greg, you were saying earlier on, like, you know, I've done so, you know, I've got thus far, but there's still, I realize there's bits that I haven't quite got my head around, kind of thing. But that points me to the idea that it's always going to be like that. And the moment that it's not going to be like that, then we're resting on our laurels. You know, that's it. It has to be that way till the end. But it can be easy and serene and peaceful and hopeful. But those thoughts are always going to be there. Those bricks and mortar, those bits that need structure, the bits that we don't like, maybe, they're always going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, he points to getting to a place where life can just unfold as it unfolds.
Yeah.
So, you know, all the bits that are always going to be there, they're there, but so what?
Yeah.
Like you can handle them, you can experience them. It's fine.
Yeah, what came up for me there was the notion of acceptance, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know, things will ebb and flow, and they'll look like this or they'll look like that, and you know, that's life unfolding, and it's okay.
Mm.
And as I was thinking, as that occurred to me earlier, I was thinking back to one of the previous chapters around our thorns, and knowing that they're going to be there too, but we don't necessarily have to have that armor around us anymore to protect ourselves. Just moving on from there, what I highlighted on the next page, when he goes on to talk about what we've built, and he says, in this panic, in this lost state, you learn to cling and hold on to the thoughts and emotions that were passing before you. You use them to build a personality, a persona, a self-concept that would allow you to define yourself. Awareness rested itself on the objects it was aware of and called it home. Because you have this model of who you are, it is easier to know how to act, how to make decisions, and how to relate to the outside world. If you dare to look, you will see that you live your entire life based on the model you built around yourself. And that's, it's just like, whoa. I built this personality, this persona, this self-concept, and then thinking of when that does feel okay or when it doesn't feel so good, interactions with other people, things, expectations, and again back to hopefulness. Well, if I did that, I can change it. It's hopeful.
I had a call last night with a client who said she's come to the realization she is not her job. And this is after, 25 years of hard work, thinking that, pouring 60 hours a week into her job was going to, make her happy. Like that, she built a structure around this identity that she was her job. And she's just realized for various reasons that she's not. And it's funny because in the discussion, it's like, now what?
Yeah.
So a whole bunch of things have started opening up for her, but it's such a profound statement. You live your entire life based on the model you built around yourself. It's like, holy crap.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And somehow expecting outcomes to be different or whatever.
Yeah.
Like.
What's fun, it makes me think back to earlier in the book when he says, like, who are you? Well, I'm Sally Smith. Really? I'm, I was Snow White in the school play, and I was the valedictorian. It's like, again, this whole structure that we've built our lives around is not who we are at all.
Yeah. And so it's one bit I'm always curious about, just remembering, let's say, the peaceful feelings that I have when I remind myself of that and know that it's true. And I remember also in the process of coming to this realization of like who I really am, or the truth of my being. I was just thinking of your example with your client, Greg, that there is indeed a moment of panic because we come so far in the journey, which is, okay, I'm not my job. Well, who am I? And there's that second of panic, and perhaps realizing I'm thinking this for work purposes, I would need to be aware of that, speaking to other people to maybe ease them through that moment, which must be quite difficult. Okay, well, I've got this. I'm not my job. I'm not my sporting activity. I'm not my husband's wife, if you like. I'm who the hell am I? Like, that's the terrifying bit.
Well, it's terrifying when you don't have an answer.
Yes, exactly. And I'm thinking of me in the early stages of this. That's how it was. Like, I'd get so far. Okay, I've got this. I'm not that. I'm not this. I'm not that. Who am I? And that's awful.
It's like having the rug pulled up underneath you. Like,
yeah.
The next thing I highlighted says, but is not who you are. It is just the thoughts you have pulled around yourself in an attempt to define yourself. You
Yeah.
do this because you are lost inside, and it gets into the why of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. To me, it was just like when you're clinging to that identity of yourself, you have this false sense of security.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you're completely lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why when things don't go the way they're supposed to go, it causes so much suffering. So you're going to say something, Lynn?
No, what just occurred to me there is what lens we go to in our lives to be safe. And he says next, you attempt to create a sense of stability and steadiness inside, and isn't that what we do based on this structure that we've built up and persona about ourselves? And it's all in an attempt to be safe in this world that is just unfolding, that we have very little control over. And you sit back and think about that, it's like, that seems a bit nuts.
Yeah.
It's a bit exhausting. And then he throws other people in the mix, and well, come on.
Yeah.
You want people to be steady enough so that you can predict their behavior. If they aren't, it disturbs you. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I was at a dinner party on the weekend, and I was talking about him and his aunt about a falling out because he would tell his mom what he thought about his aunt, and then his mom would tell his aunt. So his aunt was quite upset. Surprise, not surprising. Anyway, but it was exactly that, like, how his aunt was basically interfering with the peace and stability in his world by behaving a certain way. Like somehow his aunt, if only his aunt would smarten up and follow the script,
behave according to his script,
and everything would be okay.
Yeah, that's one of my points of failure. Yeah, I regularly fall into that trap. If only my sister would this, and if only the dog's owner would do that. Or it's a regular one for me. Great learnings there. So true. And it's just a trap. It's focused consciousness, concentrated consciousness. Yeah.
I highlighted this part where he says, you go to work and get lost in your professional facade, but then you say, I'm going home to be with my family and friends where I can just be myself. So your work facade drops into the background and your relaxed social facade comes forward. And I remember when my kids were young, we went to the community center where my wife works. And when she started talking to her lifeguards that work for her or the customers at the pool or whatever, my kids would go, oh, mommy's using her work voice. Because she took on this whole facade of I'm, the pool supervisor and I'm in charge. And like it was a I don't know, an energetic, I don't know, how like camp people are, like they're all full of energy and, oh yeah, let's go, you guys can do it, we can go swimming, we can do this. And my kids know, like, at a very young age, like, oh, she has her work voice. And then at home, if she ever turned on her work voice, we knew we were we're
you're in trouble.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many different personas do we create?
Yeah.
Like in a day, just in any given day, how we can take on a different persona. And this notion of, I can just go home and be myself.
Well, I've heard so many people describe, and I mean, we're just through the holiday season, but like when you go back home to be with your family, you fall into that facade of like, what is my role as the middle child or as the whatever? And Yeah, it's funny how easily we can fall back into those made up structures.
Mm.
And for me, what this chapter is doing is helping remind me not only are they made up, but I made them up.
Mm. Yeah, make them up, and I think this is a part of you make them up and you make it so.
Mm.
Mm. Mm.
And the example that's just come to mind, I remember many years ago. So, my parents sent us to public school, which in the UK is I've got a scholarship for public school. So, rather than public school is a paid for school, like it's supposed to be better than the comprehensives or whatever in the UK it's supposed to be. And in my region is that we have a very sort of thick, quite difficult to understand accent. It's I'm speaking to Greg and then on this, of course, a Geordie accent. And there's also I'm talking as a baby boomer. I'm talking here. I'm made today. It's probably completely different. But there used to be. I mean, there would be. You would speak British English, like the Queen's English, like BBC English. Okay, so and that would be you'd be speaking properly, whatever that means. Like so, with no accent, no dialect, nothing like that. And indeed, you would be judged for if you had a very thick regional accent. You'd be judged in a negative way, like, oh, this person obviously didn't get an education, or this, that, and the other, by, of course, those who spoke with a BBC posh accent. That would be the kind of, and I have no idea how it is today, but I've been away for too long. But I remember my father saying to me, my father was a dentist, and he set up his business in sort of, let's say, the rougher end of town, and was very happy serving those people also of let's say, a poorer income and people with poorer dental hygiene. And I noticed, because sometimes holiday periods and Dad would still be working, like we'd go to he had taken on this huge house, part of only which he used as a surgery. And Linda and I, my sister and I, would just go run around the house like lunatics from the rest of it, which he hadn't even done up at all. It was like dusty and old and this, that, and the other. And then sometimes like we'd get hungry and Dad would be drilling somebody's mouth somewhere. So we'd kind of pop into the surgery and say, Dad, you're hungry. And Dad would sort of gently excuse himself from his patient, presuming that he wasn't under anaesthetic, in which case the door was carefully closed so we'd keep out the way. And I noticed that my father who had kind of a middle of the road accent, would be using like the local dialect, speak to those people. And I actually asked him, I said, well, why are you speaking funny, Dad? So why are you speaking like that? And he said, well, I think I can connect better to my patients when I speak like this, and they feel more comfortable. So I'm kind of thinking that's kind of another side, like he put out this facet, I'm one of you guys. I've come up from the coal mines as well, from the railways, as people in those days of that, let's say, social standing did. That also can be a facet, which indeed, in my mind, can be connecting. Yeah. He wanted it to work for his patients and that kind of thing. It's just another viewpoint on that. It's not always, let's say, bad to put out another face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think fundamentally that's the reason we have so many facades, is because in each circumstance we're playing a role or a part that creates the most connection, the smoothest experience possible. Yeah.
And I guess the trick would be, therefore, quite simply to be aware of that and not to fall into the trap. Well, it's okay because whoever I am, I'm still okay and complete and full inside of me in my own consciousness, sort of thing. And this is indeed just a facet that I put out there for whatever reason.
Yeah, I love your story.
Yeah.
I was imagining this big old house and the two of you running around.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to go and create havoc.
This paragraph, I don't know what pages you guys are on, but this paragraph it speaks so beautifully to that, what you were just pointing to there, Elaine. He talks about clinging and building, and he says some of us are better at this than others. In most societies, you are well rewarded for how good you are at clinging and building. If you get that model down absolutely right and behave consistently every time, you've actually created someone. And if the someone that you created is what others want and need, you can be very popular and successful. You are that person. And then he says, and if the person you created is not receiving the popularity and success you expected, you can adjust your thoughts accordingly. It's not that there is anything wrong with this. Obviously, everybody does it. But who are you that's doing this, and why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And
That's what I meant to say.
You said it. He goes, it's important to realize that it's not up to you what thoughts you cling to and what person you create. Society has a lot to say about this, and that's, if you think about your dad and in the environment that he was in, what would society have to say if he turned up to that neighborhood with a posh accent? He probably wouldn't have got the clients. Who knows? I mean, who knows? We don't know, but or he wouldn't have had the connection, or they wouldn't have felt comfortable, or a million things.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah.
And to go back to our work in the principles, and if we're always doing what makes sense at a level of consciousness, then that's exactly what your dad was doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So much in this chapter.
I just love how he writes. Just think about how nice you are to people when they behave in accordance with your expectations. Now think about how you close up and pull back from them when they don't. It's like, it's just got it.
I do that on a regular basis.
It's one of his favorite. This is one of his favorite questions. And then he goes, I'm sorry I didn't read this. I listened to it this morning instead of reading it. This is not to mention getting angry or even violent with them. And one of his favorite questions, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're trying to change someone's behavior by leaving impressions on their mind.
Yeah. 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 And read instead of change, manipulate.
Yeah, that's the exact word I was just going to say.
That is the word,
Yeah.
And then get upset and angry when they don't. It's like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? In truth, we are all doing this to each other every day. Boo.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
If you let go of your facade and don't try to trade it in for a new one, your thoughts and emotions will become unanchored and begin passing through you. It will be a very scary experience. Yeah. And this is the point of change, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and he cuts to the quick. I actually didn't find exactly where you were on the page, so I hope I haven't gone before, but it looks to me, the part I underlined, how he cuts to the quick and just gets straight to the point. And he said, stop defining the disturbed mind as a negative experience. Just see if you can relax behind it. And when your mind is disturbed, don't ask, what do I do about this? Instead, ask, who am I that notices this?
Hmm.
And in that moment, when you can just get a glimpse, of who you really are, like everything, pack of cards, the house of cards, it just falls down. It just like you've taken the bottom one out, the base, you've taken it out, and it just falls down. And you're left, at least I am left with peace, as indeed he suggests. It's peace and calm.
He says, what it means to live spiritually is not to participate in this struggle. It means that the events that happen in the moment belong to the moment. They don't belong to you. They have nothing to do with you. You must stop defending yourself in relationship to them. You must let them come and go.
Yeah.
Yeah. In your metaphor there, it's like, yeah, when your house of cards collapses, it's like you can realize, like, who said I needed to build this house of cards anyway? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even need this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, here's one of my favorite Michael Singer things. He says, why should anything that anyone says or does cause you to get disturbed?
Yeah.
You're just on a planet spinning around in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
There's nothing you can make up inside of your mind that can ever be considered reality. You must learn to be comfortable with the psychological disturbance.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love how this chapter, the first, 3/4 of it is like, here's what's going on. And then the last bit is like, here's what's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a real turning point here.
Yeah.
It had me thinking, like, is that what I want? This possibility, this freedom. Like, is this, I'm like, and it's that fear, right? That panic of like, oh shit, like, I don't want to let go of my house of cards. Like, I like my house of cards. It's served me quite well for years or so, I think. Maybe I'll just wrap up, read the last paragraph. Once you reach this state, you will never have to worry about anything ever again. The forces of creation will create creation, both inside and outside of you. You will float in peace, love, and compassion beyond it all, yet honoring it all. There is no need for false solidity when you are at peace with the universal expanse of your true being.
Yeah.
Next time we're on to part 5, Living Life, chapter 15, The Path of Unconditional Happiness. That sounds pretty good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.